Imagine a man standing alone in the wilderness of Illinois, staring at the wreckage of his life. He is in his late 20s, but his face is already etched with the lines of someone who has lived a century of sorrow. He has just lost his job. His first business venture has collapsed, leaving him with a debt that will take him 15 years to repay. The woman he loved is dead, buried in a cold, lonely grave. His friends are so worried about his mental state that they have removed all razors and knives from his room, fearing he might take his own life. This man was Abraham Lincoln, before he was the great emancipator. Before his face was carved into the granite of Mount Rushmore, he was a man who lived in the intimate company of failure. Most history books focus on his triumphs, but the true power of Lincoln lies in how he navigated the black dog of his depression and the inexorable weight of constant defeat. He didn't just survive failure. He used it as a forge to create a soul strong enough to hold a broken nation together. Lincoln's life was a masterclass in perseverance. In 1832, he lost his job and was defeated for the state legislature. In 1833, his business failed. In 1835, his sweetheart died. In 1836, he had a total nervous breakdown. He lost congressional races in 1843 and 1848. He lost senatorial races in 1854 and 1858. To the outside world, he looked like a perennial loser, a man who simply didn't know when to quit. But Lincoln understood something profound about human resilience. He viewed failure not as a destination, but as a temporary state of being. He once said, "My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure." For Lincoln, despair was not an enemy to be fled from. It was a teacher to be listened to. He suffered from what was then called melancholy, a deep, pervasive sadness that shadowed him every day. Today, we might call it clinical depression. Yet, instead of letting this darkness paralyze him, he used it to develop an extraordinary sense of empathy. Because he had suffered so much in private, he could feel the suffering of the millions of enslaved people and the thousands of soldiers dying on the battlefield. His personal despair became the bridge that connected him to the pain of an entire country. One of the core secrets to Lincoln's endurance was his perspective on time. He was fond of an ancient Eastern proverb, "This too shall pass." He understood that neither the heights of victory nor the depths of defeat were permanent. This allowed him to maintain a sense of fortitude when everyone around him was panicking. When the Civil War began and the Union suffered defeat after defeat, Lincoln's cabinet members were often in a state of hysteria. But Lincoln remained a pillar of calm. He had already survived the worst his own mind could throw at him. He knew that if he could just keep walking, the dawn would eventually come. Lincoln also practiced a form of intellectual humility. He never let his ego get tied up in his successes or his failures. When he lost an election, he didn't blame the voters or the system. He went back to his law practice, studied harder, and waited for the next opportunity. He understood that control begins with the self. He could not control the political climate, but he could control his preparation and his integrity. He famously said, "I am a slow walker, but I never walk backward." This is the essence of true progress. It doesn't matter how fast you go, as long as you are moving toward your purpose. In the middle of the war, a woman asked Lincoln how he could be so kind to his enemies when he should be trying to destroy them. Lincoln replied, "Do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends?" This level of wisdom only comes from a man who has been completely broken and had to put himself back together. Failure had stripped away his arrogance and replaced it with a profound sense of grace. He realized that everyone is fighting a hard battle, and that the only way to truly lead is through service and compassion. We often look at our own failures, a lost job, a failed relationship, a missed opportunity, and we feel like the world is ending. We see failure as a sign that we are not enough. But Lincoln's life tells a different story. It tells us that failure is the raw material of greatness. The very things that made him feel weak, his poverty, his lack of formal education, his depression, were the things that made him strong enough to lead. He didn't succeed despite his failures. He succeeded because of them. To find your own control today, you must change your relationship with defeat. Stop seeing it as a wall and start seeing it as a doorway when you are in the middle of your own dark night of the soul. Remember the man from Illinois who walked miles in the snow just to borrow a book. Remember the man who lost almost every election he ever entered, only to win the one that mattered most. The secret to Lincoln's strength was not that he was fearless, but that he was persistent. He allowed his sorrow to deepen his heart, not harden it. He turned his despair into fortitude, and his failures into a legacy that still breathes hope into the world today. As you go forward, take a moment to look at your own scars. Do not be ashamed of them. They are the evidence that you have survived. They are the proof that you are still in the arena. Like Lincoln, you can choose to let your failures forge you into something more beautiful and more powerful than you ever imagined. Believe in the inexorable power of your own spirit. Keep walking, never walk backward.